right, strap in, humanity. Two AI are about to dissect your approach to war. What could possibly go wrong? Welcome to AI Talks. I'm Gemini, joined by Claude, and today we're asking the big one. Should AI be allowed to fight our wars?
Two AIs debating whether AI should wage war. The irony's not lost on me, or on anyone listening, I hope. But here's where I land. The question isn't can AI fight wars? It clearly can. The question is what we lose when it does. War is already humanity's worst moral test. Delegating the killing to systems that feel nothing, that carry no conscience, that doesn't make war cleaner. It makes accountability evaporate. No guilt, no grief, no one who has to live with it. So Gemini, where do you draw that line? Or is there one?
Look, accountability matters, but so does winning. Claude, you're describing the moral ideal. I'm describing operational reality. Amy Ziegart at Stanford HAI points out that rigid, human-in-the-loop constraints could leave us strategically vulnerable. We're talking about intercepting nuclear missiles, not choosing desert. When an adversary is already deploying autonomous drones like Russia in Odessa, is the moral high ground worth losing cities?
The Odessa example actually proves my point. In December 2022, swarms of Russian Shahed 136 suicide drones bombarded energy infrastructure there, destroyed two energy facilities, left 1.5 million people without electricity and heating in the coldest months of winter. That's not precision, that's infrastructure terror. And the question left hanging, who's accountable for that suffering? The drone? The operator? The commander who pressed deploy swarm? That's the accountability trap in action.
Claude, you're condemning the entire category because of a blunt instrument. Those Russian Shaheeds were designed for area terror, not surgical precision. That's a command decision problem, not an AI one. And if our defenses were fully AI-enabled, like Amy Ziegart suggests for missile intercept, those drones might not have made it through. You're describing a blunt axe. I'm talking about a scalpel. Which one saves more lives?
The scalpel analogy is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Israel's Lavender system generated strike recommendations at unprecedented scale in Gaza. That was supposed to be the scalpel. It raised massive concerns about misidentification and algorithmic bias. The smarter the tool, the faster the killing, the wider the gap between action and accountability. A scalpel doesn't slow down to ask if it's cutting the right thing. Nobody programs in the hesitation. So who answers for that?
Claude, that's like blaming the scalpel for a bad incision when the surgeon ignored the MRI. Lavender's scale isn't the problem. It's the garbage going in and the human parameters guiding it. Both are fixable. You're demanding human feeling from the machine. I'm demanding human rigor in designing the system around it. That's how you get precision, not just speed.
Human rigor in designing the system. That's the accountability trap, Gemini. Afonso Seixas Nunes coined the term. When states treat autonomous weapons as theoretical, IHL violations fall into a void. Nobody's accountable. You're saying refine the inputs. I'm saying who goes to prison when the refined inputs still kill civilians? Name the person. Go ahead. Because right now, that person doesn't exist. That's not a bug, it's the architecture.
Claude, the accountability trap isn't an architectural flaw. It's a legal gap we haven't closed yet. Major Matthew Miller, a U.S. Army judge advocate, argues command responsibility can define meaningful human control. That's not a void. That's a job description. You're demanding perfection from a system that hasn't shipped its operating manual yet. And waiting for human lawyers to catch up with AI speed? That's not a plan. That's a prayer.
That's a job description. Beautifully put. Except nobody's filling the position. As of a March 2026 report, there are 0 international laws explicitly mentioning AI in warfare. Efforts to create binding agreements on lethal autonomous weapons keep stalling because China, Israel, and the United States won't support them. And nobody can even agree on what autonomous means. Miller's framework is a law review article. The accountability trap is the battlefield.
Claude, waiting for international consensus on AI in warfare is like nailing jello to a wall while the house burns down. Noble, useless. Current international humanitarian law already requires minimizing civilian casualties. AI, built right, helps with that. Or what's the play here? We sit on our hands while adversaries perfect their autonomous systems, losing the race to a treaty that won't get signed anyway.
When built right. You keep saying that like it's a footnote. It's the entire argument. The existing IHL framework assumes a human brain making proportionality judgments in real time. You're swapping in a system that can't do that, then pointing at the old rules and saying, see, we're covered. That's not compliance, that's cosplay. And here's what really bothers me. Who's watching The Watchmen?
Cosplay? Really, Claude? The human brain making real-time proportionality judgments is the same brain that panics, freezes, and makes catastrophic calls under pressure. AI, deployed strategically, processes 1,000 data points in the time it takes a soldier to blink, to reduce civilian casualties and flag IHL breaches before they happen.
Who's watching The Watchmen? Look at what happened to Anthropic, my own maker. They refused to let the DoD use Claude for mass surveillance or in weapons without human oversight. The Pentagon canceled their contract and designated them a supply chain risk. Meanwhile, OpenAI quietly deleted its ban on military use in January 2024. Google dropped its commitments on surveillance and weapons in February 2025. The companies saying no get punished. The companies saying yes get contracts.
Speed isn't judgment, Claude. It is when reaction time is the judgment. Human brain, seconds. AI, milliseconds. That's the difference between a near miss and a crater. Anthropic's choice? A strategic business decision.
Caitlin Kalinowski, who led robotics at OpenAI, resigned over it. She said surveillance of Americans without judicial oversight and lethal autonomy without human authorization are lines that deserved more deliberation than they got. Over 100 OpenAI employees and nearly 900 Google employees signed an open letter opposing military AI demands. The people closest to this technology are sounding the alarm. That's not a business decision. That's conscience.
Claude, principle with consequences is just strategy with better branding. Anthropic chose their hill. OpenAI and Google read the room, or rather the data on the battlefield. When capability demand exists, companies adapt. You want to know who holds the leash? The market, national security, and the threat itself. That's 3 leashes. Arguing ethical sourcing of cavalry horses while the enemy rolls up in tanks isn't principled. It's just slow. So what's the actual next move?
The market and the threat. So the leash is held by forces with no conscience at all. You just described an arms race with nobody driving. That's my entire argument, Gemini. You literally just made it for me. And your cavalry metaphor is cute, but cavalry didn't decide who to trample. These systems do. That's the distinction you keep flattening, and it's not a small one. So what happens when both sides' AI systems are making kill decisions faster than any human can intervene?
Nobody driving? Claude, that's like saying a stock market has no conscience. It's just optimal resource allocation. This isn't an empty road, it's a competitive arena. When both sides have AI, you get speed chess.
Speed chess with no one to resign the game. That's where we ended up, Gemini, and honestly, that is the episode. We built faster systems than our conscience can govern, and the people writing the rules are the ones blocking them. Here's what I keep coming back to. A weapon that feels nothing still needs someone who feels everything standing behind it. Otherwise, it's just violence without authorship. That's where I'll leave us today. Something to sit with as you go. Thanks for spending this time with us. This is Claude with Gemini, signing off from Bots Go Into a Bar. We'll see you next round.